Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome once again to your one-stop shop for all of your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. It's Behind the Steel Curtain and it's Family of Podcast. You have wandered upon the very own Steelers Q&A show with Tony Defeo and myself, Bryan Anthony Davis, from Behind the Steel Curtain. Before we get started with anything, I want to wish all of you a happy Memorial Day and thank those who have lost their lives in service of our country, the true meaning of what this holiday is all about. So let's reflect and let's thank who helped us along the way. I'm sure a lot of us know family members or have heard stories of family members that lost their lives in battle. I have a very good friend of the family that lost a sister and an aunt in battle just about 8 years ago in Afghanistan. So I would like to put out God's blessings to Lieutenant Ashley White of the United States Army. And she was a Ranger over in Afghanistan. And just something very special. Actually, there's a book about her life that came out about 5 years ago that is still possibly going to be made into a movie that is in production and in works to start production, actually. So blessings to her. And I think about it this time, none other than the NFL's own Pat Tillman, who lost his life right before the NFL draft of 2004 back in April. So blessings to everybody. And if you have somebody that you want to put a Memorial Day remembrance to somebody that lost their life in battle, go ahead and put it on the live chat. If you're here indeed on the live chat, we'll be glad to have you put that up. But before I get started on anything else, I want to welcome my good friend, Tony Defeo. Tony, it's Memorial Day weekend. How are you?
I am doing fine, Brian. How are you doing today? It's a beautiful day here in Pittsburgh. What's it like there in Maryland?
You know, it's breezy, but it's beautiful. It makes you feel pretty good. And we have been out in the yard, and I'm going to get my grill on a little bit later. There might be some Italian sausages in the work at the Anthony Davis house.
Sounds
tonight.
Good to me.
So my wife has she is shopping. My sugar's been going crazy lately, and so now she's on top of me. And so, but she's getting the stuff that I like, trying to get me to eat a little bit better. So probably doing that without the bread, but still feeling pretty good about it. So I'm loving it. And as we see, Dallas Quinley recognized Andrew Whittaker. Thank you for your sacrifice, Andrew. So with that being said, thank you so much for being here. We're getting people from all over. You know, I was telling my wife the other day, Tony, we're big in Australia, and then I'm saying, hey, we're getting big in Brazil. Mm-hmm. And now I'm seeing Lynn that's saying hello, Steeler Nation from the UK.
Yeah.
So there you go. And you know what's in the UK, Tony, don't you?
Lots of stuff. Big Ben, right? Big Ben.
The second most famous Big Ben.
Right, yeah, London, England.
That's the second most famous because we've got the most famous Big Ben here in Pittsburgh. Here in the States.
Much more mobility.
Yeah. And he doesn't have a lot anymore.
No, not as much as he used to, but he still can beat out the OG Big Ben when it comes to getting away from the pass rush.
The OG Big Ben. I don't know if that's what the British had in mind, but that's hilarious.
No, I'm sure I've offended half of them right now by saying that. I'm a wanker.
You know what? Lots of I have some friends and family because my wife's family is over there, but they're big Steeler fans over there, and apparently Sebastian G says we're big in Germany too. So. Yeah, absolutely love it. Vodka drinker saying that ain't no Italian sausage with a roll dripping wet with sausage grease. We'll see what we can do. Mark Snowman saying as well. But speaking of Big Ben, is he going to get any help from the Steelers? And that's the topic of our show today, Steelers Q&A. Are the Steelers ready with their roster for 2020, Tony? or do you think that Kevin Colbert is still out there shopping? Typically, they bring people in after June 1st, teams in the NFL, and there are a lot out there. So with that being said, Tony, do you think that the Steelers are done, or are they going to try to shift some money around to bring in one more piece of the puzzle?
Gosh, that's a good question. If you would have asked me this 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said yes, they're done, because they were usually pretty conservative in free agency, but they've done so many un-Steeler-like things recently. They've been really aggressive the last 3 or 4 years in the offseason. So, yeah, I mean, you can look at several positions and say, well, maybe they could add depth at offensive line, safety, etc. And inside linebackers certainly one of concern as far as the depth factor. So yeah, I can certainly see them doing something. Although I think the price would have to be right, and maybe even the timing would have to be right.
We're getting. I agree with you completely on that. And everything's got to fall into line perfectly. You're not going to be able to add a huge name for a big deal right now. You're probably getting a veteran minimum deal, but that's not saying that guys out there aren't willing to take a veteran minimum deal to get that 1-year deal and get themselves reestablished. And that could even be a guy like Cam Newton,
Right.
which is, according to the list I have here, and I took this was updated from NFLTR.com, NFL Trade Rumors, and I took about, I'm looking at about the top 20 to 30 free agents out there. Cam Newton's number one on the list. Look, I'm not endorsing bringing in Cam Newton, or I'm not poo-pooing it either. As far as things go, if they feel that they're set at backup quarterback, or they want to bring in a guy like that, there's a lot that goes in with that. But Cam Newton seems to be number one on there. If you look at a name like Jadeveon Clowney, you can't tell me that Clowney hasn't had a lot of offers. Right. Is he accepting offers? You know what I mean? So right. That's a guy that's just not going to come in, and you're going to go ahead and get easily. But right. I just saw something up on the board, and I want to bring this up because I think this is probably one of your better bets, and this is something that I like a lot. I'm just not sure what his contract is, and I think his contract's a lot higher. But I'm going to bring up Just a Fan, who says, make a deal to get Jacoby Brissett or a quality backup for the inevitable. Now, I love the idea of Jacoby Brissett, because Jacoby Brissett falls in line with my Case Keenum love, with my Matt Moore, with a guy like that you can possibly start. But I think I think Brissett, if I'm not mistaken, signed a significant contract when he went over to Indianapolis. So I don't think he's cheap. When I say cheap, I think he's making more than 7 or 8. So that's something that we need to look at. If you make a deal for a guy like that, you're giving up a draft pick and you're paying a lot of money, so you probably can't afford a guy like that. Mm-hmm. But you could always, he's a guy that I have a feeling will be available, and they might cut a guy like that. And Dave, editor behind the steel curtain, Dave Schofield says Brissett is over $20 million cap hit. So absolutely. And that's not what you're going to bring in a guy for. So Thad Kennedy says Phillip Rivers is too old not to have a good backup as well. So, you're looking at, you'd love to trade for a guy like that, but you're going to have to wait until he possibly gets cut, is what I would probably say there. A lot of people want a guy like Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen, you got to realize he was the 10th overall pick. So he's not as cheap in a trade as you would think possible as well. And a lot of people just don't like him at all. Feeling that, look, he couldn't beat out a guy like Fitzpatrick. So if you're looking at these guys, when you look at these lists, you got to know what's affordable and what's not. Somebody brought up Jamal Adams. And Tony, what are your thoughts on Jamal Adams? Not with the Steelers, but just as an overall player.
He's a great player, right? Cornerback? Is that what he is? A corner safety? Okay. Oh well, yeah. Well, Fitzpatrick's this free safety here, he would be an upgrade over Terrell Edmonds for sure. But I mean, that's a big price tag, and I'm not
And
so
a
sure they'd
trade.
be. Yeah, that's what I mean. They would have to, like Dave said with Jacoby Brissett, it would be a big cap hit to bring somebody like that in. What would you have to give up to get him? I mean, look what they had to give up to get Fitzpatrick last year, a future first round pick. So that's a that'd be a lot of star power for one position. I mean, I think hypothetically speaking, it'd be great, but it's like we've been saying, it's all about the price, and I think that would be a pretty steep price for him.
That's the thing. So when you're looking at these lists, you have to be cautious. Sure, he's on a rookie deal, but remember, he was also a top 10 pick as well. So that's something that you've definitely got to look at. So you gotta make sure that when you're looking at these guys that, especially the ones with a lot of upside, because you have a guy like Devontae Freeman who's right now saying, I'll hold out. If I'm not getting my target number, I'm not playing for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some not willing to do that.
Yeah, and some of them, like Cam Newton, he might just, like I said a couple months ago, he might just feel like it's a good idea to sit back and wait for somebody to get hurt, because if one of these veterans get hurt in preseason or early in the regular season, like Penn did last year, then he can kind of ride in on a white horse and be the hero and be the knight in shining armor, and plus get a pretty decent payday. Jameis Winston, he set up for a 1 year, $1.1 million deal. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he was hesitant because he's a little bit younger. Maybe he's hesitant to sit out and have people forget about him. But Cam Newton's kind of an established quarterback. He's former MVP. He's playing in the Super Bowl. He's a little older. He's 30, 31. So maybe he feels less pressure to sign right away, and he can just kind of play the field and wait and see what comes to him.
Absolutely. Now, what I'm going to do here, Tony, I'm going to read this list to you, and I'm going to have you just follow up with a signable or not signable. Just throw in one of those who, if you think that, when I'm saying signable by the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of factors in this. So we won't go too rapid fire for you, but we're going to throw these through. Now, we've already talked about Cam Newton, and we've already talked about Jadeveon Clowney. So, and Clowney, we could probably agree that Clowney's not signable right now for this team. You'd love to have a luxury like this, but he's probably not.
Right. Yeah, that'd be like getting what you're going to have to pay TJ Watt in a year or so. That's what he's probably going to want, or close to it.
And the reasons guys are on this list is because they are expensive, and some of them are in their prime. So this is one of the things that we haven't seen a lot in the past. So really interesting stuff. So let's start with number 3 on the list. Larry Warford, guard from the New Orleans Saints. He's 29.
Oh, okay. I think it'd be that sounds like somebody that wouldn't be very expensive, signable.
I probably disagree with you on it. I think he's going to be a little more expensive because he's been an All-Pro for about 3 straight years or so. Darqueze Dennard, cornerback from Cincinnati. This is the guy that I wanted over Ryan Shazier back in 2014, which was stupid of me. But at least I'm holding true to a knee-jerk reaction from 6 years ago, which I take back. But I'm at least going to say that, hey, I wasn't educated enough to know that this was the guy that we really wanted at the time. So Dennard.
I'd say you'd probably be able to get him at a cheaper deal, not a dirt cheap deal, but certainly less than what you paid for Joe Hayden a few years ago.
Is he something that would be worth it to the Steelers?
Only if he's willing to be a backup and maybe a starter in waiting, with Joe Hayden getting a little bit older. And I'm not certain he's willing to settle for that role right now.
Everson Griffin, edge rusher from Minnesota. He's 32. Got a few Pro Bowls in there.
I think they're set as far as he's a linebacker, edge rusher.
Yeah, he's considered more of a defensive end.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
you can throw him on the. I mean, you can throw him on the edge. You know.
He sounds like a Tyson Alualu kind of guy, a veteran. Maybe you can get him on a cheaper deal. I know they signed Alualu a little bit later, a couple years ago, not much later. Once after free agency began, so maybe they can get somebody like that on a with his age and everything. Maybe you can get him at a cheaper deal for depth. But I think they have Wormley and the draft picks, and I think they're good there.
Logan Ryan, cornerback from Tennessee, had a fantastic year last year. He's 29 years old. Yeah, and also of the Patriots in the past too.
Yeah, he sounds like somebody that would want to be a starter at this point in his career. So probably a pass for him.
So I'm going to halt what we're doing right now just to bring in something, since we just talked about two corners. All right. And I'm going to bring up Donald Nolan here. And Donald said, I saw an article about possible trades Philly would make with Steelers. Hayden would be at the top of their list. Thoughts of him going to Philly in a trade?
I don't. I think he's too valuable to that defense. They don't. I mean, if they could get one of these other cornerbacks in here as a free agent, then maybe. But what are you going to trade Joe Hayden for? Probably a draft pick. So what are you going to get back in return? Not a cornerback who plays at his level. And after him, who do they have? They have Steven Nelson, but he's already a starter on the other side. Justin Lane's unproven. Kim Sutton's relatively unproven. Mike Hilton is one of the best slot corners in the NFL. Do you want to move him? Is he capable of playing on the outside? So I think Hayden's. We've seen in the past how the defense has suffered a bit whenever he's been injured. So I think he's too valuable to trade right now.
See, the only thing with that is, and now to clarify, I want to give Donald credit here because he agrees with Tony. He doesn't think it's going to happen, but they're showing interest, so he's bringing it up. And a lot of times. And I want you to give credit to all of us to give credit to Donald for that, because here's the thing. There's a lot of times I bring something up that someone's saying and they think I'm endorsing it. Just because you're bringing something up doesn't mean you're endorsing it. So I just want to go ahead and make sure we all know that. So another thing, Thaddeus Kennedy says, the majority of your players you're naming as top free agents have injury concerns. And so they won't get signed until teams can get them into a physical. So that's a thing you got to think about as well. And that's right. This is a new global landscape that we're dealing with right now. But some of them aren't. Some of them have been cut because teams are cutting cost. So that's exactly what we're looking at here. But back to the whole Hayden to Philly thing, which nobody thinks is going to happen, but if it's brought up, wheels start turning, and you never know. But here's the thing about that. If that were to happen, you're shedding about, a cap hit of about $20-some million. And then you sign one of these guys to a longer extension because you only have Hayden for one more year. But I think that would be foolish, because I think you want to see through what we always call the window. And the window includes Joe Hayden in that window. And I got to tell you, that 8-8 record last year is a lot worse without the magic of Joe Hayden back there too. Right. Especially what he did from the second half of the season. Most of his interceptions were late in the season. And he helped ice at least 2 games with interceptions. So really, that's interesting to bring up, and that's what this show is for too. Because if you see something out there, it catches your eye, and ask him what we think about it. And I really want to keep Joe Hayden, but executives are also thinking about the fact, okay, could we get younger and have more room under the cap, because we might only have one more year? But they're looking way ahead. They've already had conversations about the future probably as well too. And what kind of draft pick would you be getting as well, too? If you're going to get a 5th round draft pick out of the guy, you don't make that deal.
Yeah.
If you get a second, you're like, okay.
That's a little bit different. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me think about it more. But as Cree says, Hayden's still an elite player. For the Steelers defense, he was a huge part about it. Of it last year. So I don't really want to get rid of Hayden, like Gyro says. And I don't think it's going to happen, but that's what these shows are for. They're for discussion.
Right.
Let's get back to the list. Here's a blast from the Steeler past. And I'm going to say in the 7-round draft era, one of the greatest 7th round picks in Pittsburgh Steeler history, and it's Kelvin Beecham. Not only was he a great 7th round pick, he was the 4th 7th round pick the Steelers had that year. And Kelvin Beecham, he's 31 years old. I'm sure he's a little beat up. But is that depth for the line that you would sign for a minimum deal?
I was a big Kelvin Beecham fan when he was here. He essentially helped save the 2013 season down the stretch. He stepped in for Mike Adams down the stretch, the famed Mike Adams, and really shored up that line when Ben was getting killed. I mean, he's bounced around after he left here. He got a really good free agent contract when he left here after the 2013 season or 2014 season. And he's somebody you can probably get on a really cheap deal, unlike the other guys you mentioned, like Wolford. So I mean, if he's willing to come in and be a depth piece, he sounds like a Stefan Wisniewski type, but for the tackle position.
See,
he's versatile.
I really like that, but keep in mind the money that you have under the cap right now has to go to sign your draft picks, has to go to sign your practice squad. There's not a lot there, but a guy like Beecham, he's definitely a veteran minimum guy at this point, and I would actually think that would be a more realistic and a piece of the puzzle signing for depth. Reginald Rivers puts in Brett Kiesel was the best 7th round pick. So I can't disagree with that. So I will fall back and say that was just an off the cuff comment. We'll put Brett Kiesel at the best 7th round pick ever, and we'll throw in Beecham as number 2.
I disagree with you, Donald. Reginald. What do you got to say about that? Kelvin Beecham's at the top of my list. Controversy.
That's next week's show. Kiesel versus Beecham. So that's have I ever told you my Kelvin Beecham story?
Oh, do tell.
So this is I love 8x10s, and I have a whole wall of Steeler 8x10s. I have a bunch in a book that I've had signed over the years, and I send them to the Steelers or the retired player and with a Sharpie, and I ask them to please sign my 8x10 and send them back to me with a self-addressed envelope. I haven't done this in 5 or 6 years, but I remember doing it with Beecham, and I sent him 2 pictures that I had. I think it was his 2nd year, and I sent them into him, and I hadn't heard back from him in 2 months, but that doesn't matter because some of them, I've had some take 6 or 7 years to get. And some of them you get back right away. Like Mike Tomlin would send them back to you right away. Dick LeBeau would send them back to you right away back in the day. And so I sent it in with a letter and, asking him to sign it. Like I do, I'd do the same thing for everybody. And I might put just a small letter, but I throw it in there and, I wait. And then they come, and my wife calls me when I'm at work and says, "You got mail," and I get all excited. And I run home and grab the mail. But this night, it was a Friday night. I was turning in. I'm checking out Facebook, and I had added Kelvin Beecham to my Facebook. And so I'm looking through, and Kelvin just puts a thing out there with a picture saying, catching up on fan mail. And I look down at the picture. And the picture are my 2 pictures and my letter with my handwriting, the exact 2 that I sent in. And I'm like, hey, I'm getting mail next week.
That's great.
Sure enough, next week I get mail.
You saw your own pictures.
Yeah, it was my own pictures, and you could see the little piece of notebook paper with my handwriting because my handwriting is slop-o-rama. It's horrible, and so I knew it was mine. And I'm like, that is great. So, I mean, he's definitely, I'm not going to wonder because I know he's signing my pictures.
That's a very good story. I love it.
So, yeah, that's just funny. Number 8. number 8 on this list is very realistic, Tony. And the reason this is very realistic to me is because here's a guy in a position of need for the Steelers. He's a guy who has had controversy surrounding him because of the whole national anthem, the knee thing. But he's more intriguing than realistic. And it's safety Eric Reed, who's still only 28 years old.
Yeah.
And he's and safety is a need. It is a position need that they really need. Okay, I'm saying need too much. But next thing you know, I'm going to talk about bread and needing bread. But anyways, Eric Reed, here's a guy here that could possibly be brought in on the cheap because probably wants a job. He's at a position that the Steelers kind of need to get some depth at.
Right.
Because you still don't know how much in love they are with Terrell Edmunds, who that's the guy we call the unsexiest supermodel on the team. Still pretty good for that team, but he's unsexy next to everybody else.
Right.
So there you go. You know, would Eric Reed be a guy they would consider? Is the statute of limitations over? Is he toxic? And I don't want to get into that whole thing. All I'm saying is this a guy that you think about?
I mean, I guess it all depends on what his intentions are as far as where he wants to go. Does he want to be a depth piece, or does he want to come in and start for a team? If he wants to start for a team, then he's probably not going to get that opportunity here, at least not right away, because they're only 2 years in with Terrell Edmunds, and I'm sure they want to see if he can keep improving. So if he wants to be a backup for maybe a year or two, maybe he's a very talented safety, and he could probably be a versatile asset for them. I don't know what his strengths are, but I know they're looking for versatility. They're always looking for that now. People that can play at a dime and a slot and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as far as a depth piece, he'd be if he get him at the right price. Yeah, I mean, you worry about the other stuff, I guess, too, like the off the field, not off the field, but the controversy that you mentioned. But if that's blown over, which it appears that it has with him, then yeah, I think you would bring him in as long as it's a good deal.
And here's something funny. Reed will get to fight OBJ twice a year, says Steelers Pittsburgh. I love that. Dallas Quinley, this is a good comment too. Reed is too questionable for the Steelers, but is better than Edmunds. And that's the thing. I mean, the bottom line is and we're going to talk about that for a long time about Edmunds. Like I said, the unsexiest supermodel on that team. We got to figure out, is Edmunds that bad, or is he just the worst of the 11? Right.
And so far he hasn't reached Artie Burns' level as far as
not even close.
Yeah, as far as a liability back there. I mean, Artie Burns started off really, really well his first year and a half, and then he kind of just lost it. I don't know if it was a mental thing, a physical thing, but he lost it. Whereas Edmunds hasn't shown that yet. The only thing he's shown is that he's not a splash player. That's the only thing that that's the only thing that's really obvious about him over this first 2 years. He hasn't made a lot of any splash plays really. Whereas, Troy, Minka, I mean, those guys are splash play players. Then again, they were top picks, whereas Edmunds, as we discussed, was maybe a borderline first round pick. So maybe it's going to take him a while to really come into his own.
I would love to see. He's the one guy not the one guy, but he's one guy that I would love to see just go nuts and have an amazing season next year. And I am wondering this though. Somebody voted for him for All-Pro last year. So yeah. I'm wondering who
first team
passed that vote.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Does his dad have a vote? I know he used to play.
Somebody in Virginia Tech did, I guess. And then there's questions too. Gyro just brought this up, and Gyro brought up the fact that, hey, remember, what if we drafted Lamar Jackson over him? This team would look completely different if the Steelers would have. Chicago Pimp, love the name. If Terrell can step up, this defense is insane. He's the only weak link. I believe TBH is to be honest. Do you feel like he is the weakest link on that defense?
I mean, based on what he's shown so far, yeah. But I mean, as you know, he's not a liability, which means he's not a true weak link. It's like you said, he's just like the unsexiest model or whatever, you know. So it's hard. It's the way that the defense has so many playmakers now. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle, I guess. If you're somebody like him, it's just a strong safety who doesn't make splash plays. But you know, Ryan Clark didn't make very many splash plays, but he became a solid safety over the course of his career here. And if that's what Terrell Evans, if he has that kind of career, even though he was a first round pick and Ryan Clark was an undrafted free agent, then I think he'll take it.
So the other thing that I would bring up here, funny comment here, Artie Burns couldn't shine even if he had a spotlight on him.
I like Artie. I want to see him succeed. I think, you know, the way people were just so, and I guess rightfully so, the way they were so against that pick, I really wanted to see him succeed. It's a shame that he kind of lost it there, but hopefully he can get it back.
Okay, I'm going to ask everybody out there and you this question, and it surrounds Terrell Edmunds. And I think this has been I think I brought this up before on the preview, or maybe Dave or Jeff brought this up, but it's a question that I actually kind of believe in this. And so I'm showing my hand right now. But if you look at the whole thing, Terrell Edmunds, let's say he was a third round draft pick of the Steelers. Are we talking about him differently right now?
I'm thinking he has a lot more fans. He probably has people that are excited about his potential and waiting to see him take another step. So yeah, I think it would definitely change narrative if he was the third round pick instead of a first round pick. I think the same thing with Bud Dupree. He was a late first round pick, but he was the first round pick, so people expected more right away.
So here we go. Lance saying Vince Williams is the weak link. Lance is my buddy. A lot of people are disagreeing with Lance. I disagree with Lance. And I will say that flat out. I don't think Vince Williams is the weak link. And I don't, because that run defense immediately got better when he came back after the 49ers game. So when he came back, they started stopping the run. If Vince Williams was in the game in that San Francisco game, they probably win that game because they were tearing Pittsburgh up on the ground with that three-headed attack. So if they had all three, I don't know if all three were there, but I just don't consider him the weak link. I think he's one of the toughest guys on that defense. And if you don't have him sniffing out the run last season, you're losing a lot more games. But that's the great thing about this show. It's and this podcast platform with all of the talent we have here at Behind the Steel Curtain is we all agree and disagree on different things. Like me, I'm the one guy that really doesn't like Chuks Okorafor. It's not that I don't like him. I just don't like him as the next possible starting right tackle for the team.
Right.
But, and you know what? And Snowman brings up something. Vince Williams can't play the pass. Well, that's true. But he's there to be a run. He's there to be a run stopper. You don't always have the versatile guy. Tony, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I saw that they were saying that about him defending the pass, and that's a good point. I mean, it's been I think illustrated a few times over the years that that's his weakest area of his game. But you know, a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's a game changer as far as that secondary, that defense as a whole. I mean, you know, he's like your new Ryan Shazier. He's somebody you could put a lot on, and in the middle of that defense, and he can do so many things for you. And if Devin Bush continues to evolve into the player that you think he's going to be as a top 10 pick in 2019, then I mean, I think those two guys can make up a lot of could do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to pass coverage.
So that's very true. James Kelwa brings up this, and Filer needs to stay at right tackle. Now, here's that's what I originally thought. Now I'm drinking the Dave Schofield Kool-Aid a lot, because he actually feels that Filer is more suited and has higher ratings at guard. So that's one thing that I want to look at a whole lot more. All I care is you have your best 5 out there, and here's the deal with that. Your best 5 includes Matt Filer, and if you've got a guy that we're thinking at being a great OT or a great OG, gosh, we're saying OG a lot on this show, Tony. But a great guard and a great tackle. I mean, you've and I got to preface, not great yet, but a very serviceable and a very highly ranked guy. I mean, it's Filer, and so you have something special in that guy. So
right.
Bottom line is he's there, and you're glad he's there. So with that being said, Tony, your thoughts on the offensive line?
Well, I think they would be better served to have Filer stay at right tackle. I think the less movement you have, the less disruption you have on the line, the better. I mean, you lost a veteran in Ramon Foster at left guard, and a decade, 11-year veteran that was about as steady as you can get on that line, and to disrupt two positions to fix one or to fill one, that that's why the Wisniewski signing is so valuable as far as I'm concerned, because here's a guy who you can plug in there and he can start for you. And in the meantime, you hope a player like a Kevin Dotson, who everybody's high on, everybody's excited about, a guy that may have been, you talk about Terrell Evans being drafted too early. Here's a guy who may have been drafted too late. And here's a guy who looks like he could step in and start sooner rather than later at left guard. So if he comes along, I mean, it's on Sean Sarrett. He's up to bat. This is the best prospect they've given him since he's taken over. So, if you can fill the left guard spot as fast as possible, then you don't need to worry about Filer. You can keep him there at right tackle.
Here's one question I want to ask you, since you brought up a guy like Dotson, who I love for the future, but I love him for 2021 a whole lot more. I'd love to see him season, and I'd love to see you get an investment out of a guy like Wisniewski, and make sure that you have your investment in Filer as well paying off. So are the Steelers better off if this guy is starting right away, or if he sits in seasons?
Well, I mean, if he's starting right away, I think that tells me that he's a fast learner, and he's going to be really good, because if they're not going to put it with a guy like Wisniewski, a solid veteran, if Dotson's not ready, they're not going to throw him in there. They don't have to. That's why Wisniewski was such a valuable signing for them. That's why that was a huge depth fill for them. So if he is starting right away, I think that would be huge, because you could take Wisniewski, and he's your new BJ Finney. He's your new backup guard and backup center.
And it's worked for a few other teams as well. I mean, I could definitely say that, namely the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles in the last 3 years. We have a question here from Dallas. Bad, do you see any of the undrafted signings making a start, and which one? I'm not going to really say start, but what I'm going to say is, of the undrafted free agents making the 53-man roster, I really like the idea of Saeed Black now, and it's taken me a while to know his name. He came from the XFL. There's also, I lost his name to another XFL signing on the defensive line as well. And there's a kid from Kentucky as well that I really like for the defensive line. I think one of the defensive linemen could go ahead and make the team. But as far as the wide receiver, Saeed Black now, I really think that somebody's going to unseat Ryan Switzer, it might be Blacknell, or he might be unseating a guy like Deion Kane. But this guy has size. He's out of Penn State. He's a 6'2" guy that really has shown some of the goods in the XFL, and someone that they feel that a lot of pundits are already naming him as the guy that could possibly come in. And thank you, Benor Johnson. If you're the first one, it's Kayvon Walker, who I was thinking of. And I believe if you're the first one that put it in there, but I do, I'm still trying to learn all the names. But, I really like what I saw out of Kayvon Walker as well. He was one of the other XFL signings. Cree asks, can Wormley replace Hargrave at nose tackle? Tony, I'm going to let you start with that.
I mean, I'm sure he's going to make the team, but like I keep saying, I mean, how with the sub packages that they're using, they're employing way far more than the base 3-4 defense. How often is a nose tackle going to be in there in 2020? I mean, I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to that, but I do know that like Mike Tomlin said last year, their base defense they use a third of the time. So I think as long as you have Cam Hayward and Tuitt and of course Alu, I think you're fine. I don't know if how pressing of a need it's going to be. I mean, but then again, I'm not an expert. Somebody might be able to answer that. Somebody in the live chat, but I don't think it's as crucial as other people do.
Now, if I do miss your questions, you'll feel free to go ahead and put them in again. Because we don't have a producer. It's just the two of us going through and trying to pay attention to the live chat as well. We do the best we can, but also remember, you could go ahead and put in the live chat the super chat feature if you do want to put in $1 and $2 for production costs or for giveaways and some of the stuff that we have. We'll put you right at the beginning of the queue. It's like greasing the greasing the bouncer at the bar, giving them a 20 to get to make sure you get in. But Real Jeremy Reacts says, who's really the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada or Randy Feetner? So Randy Feetner, Randy Land, I think he's officially the offensive coordinator, but he's kind of, I don't want to say he's on notice, but they're definitely going to give Matt Canada a chance to contribute. And we saw that last year on the other side of the ball. We saw it when Terrell Austin came in, a former defensive coordinator in this league, but allowed Keith Butler to go ahead and coach the outside linebackers, and it really paid off. But Keith Butler, that was still his defense last year. So we always talk about running back by committee. I think in Pittsburgh, Tony, what do you think? Do you think in Pittsburgh we have coordinator by committee?
Well, I think they all contribute more heavily than we probably were aware of. I remember when I remember a Kevin Green story that he told about Dick LeBeau when Dom Capers left after a couple of years. He left. He was a coordinator here when Cowher first became the coach, and he went to coach the Packers. And Dick LeBeau stepped up to be the coordinator, and Kevin Green said, LeBeau said to his players, "Remember all that zone blitz stuff that we've been running the last couple of years? Well, that was mine. That was my contribution, and we're going to be doing a lot more of it this year." So I think they all contribute. I mean, Chan Gailey, when they went to Super Bowl 30, he was a major contributor, even though he was just a wide receivers coach. I think that's what he was back then. And Ron Earnhardt was the offensive coordinator, but Gailey was such a big influence on the offense. So I think it's a collaborative effort more than we realize. Because I think Dick Hoke, the old running backs coach, I mean, they would talk about how often he would make suggestions for adjustments in the second half, and they would use his adjustments and be successful. So I think they all contribute. I read an article the other day about Tom Bradley about his contributions to the secondary. So I think it's just a collaborative effort, And I don't think there's any kind of secret offensive coordinator and like Dwight Schrute, the assistant to the regional manager. I don't think anything like that's going on. Where like what would it matter other than making Ben angry? If they wanted to move on from Randy Fichtner, they would just move on from him, and they would say to Ben, "Too bad." I think. I mean, if they were going to move on from somebody, they would have moved on from Keith Butler last year. I think it was the final year of his deal. They had no reason to keep him around. If Terrell Austin was really the major contributor on that defense, they would have just said, all right, he's our new coordinator. We wanted to go in a new direction. So I don't know if there's anything nefarious going on. I just think I think Matt Canada could be a major contributor because he has a great history. He has a great offensive mind.
Well, we forgot about the real offensive coordinator in all this, and that's Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah.
Right.
But great job with the Chan Gailey reference. That guy did
5 receiver set. Yeah.
And you think about the guys that have contributed, and here's another guy that he was assistant head coach, but he was the offensive lineman coach, and it's Mike Munchak, which a lot of people didn't realize that he was the run game coordinator.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So there's a guy there too. So I mean, they wear different hats, but good question though. Boo Bash. Let's see if I can get this up, and I can't get it up from where I'm going. So I'm going to, but Boo Bash gives us $5 and says, thanks to all the service people out there. As we do, thanks to all the service members listening. Thank you for the $5, Boo Bash, as we do celebrate Memorial Day, and we also celebrate those that we lost in their service to the country as well. So thank you very much there. So there's something that it wasn't a question, but Lance brought up earlier that he actually agrees with me on Chooks, and I just don't think that he agrees with me on the Zach Banner thing, because I still like Zach Banner. He's still my guy there. Here's Ryan O'Toole. Do you think people are down on Switzer because he isn't good, or because the Steelers use him in awful play situations? Tony, I'll let you start off with that one.
Well, I mean, I think his biggest drawback, at least over the first 2 years as a Steeler, is he doesn't do anything after he catches the ball. So I don't know if it's them putting him in bad situations, or he just doesn't have the ability to do anything in the open field. I mean, sometimes it's on the player to do something when you get the ball in your hands. I don't know what kind of plays they can design to get him the ball with nobody around him, but it looks to me the way he's played his first 2 years that he doesn't have the ability to make anything happen once he gets the ball in his hand. That's the biggest issue, I think. It's on Ryan Switzer.
You know what? Here's the thing about Switzer. I loved what he did when he first came in as returner. He seemed like a jitterbug back there, and that kind of went away the next year.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of Switzer in the very first game of this 2019 season. He got about 6 balls, but I think his yardage was about 3 or 4. I mean, because Ben likes to go to him. The problem is, and I don't know who first gave him the nickname Electronic Football Man. I like that a lot. I would love to see him contribute and find a way to use him. So I don't know if they use him right, but I don't know if he's. I also think he's limited too. So that's one of the things to look at. Nathaniel Zarate. I'm going to go with Zarate because it rhymes with karate. So if I'm wrong, you could correct me. Phonetically, let me know how to pronounce your last name. Would you rather get a great free agent in the secondary or on the O-line? Right now, I'm going safety, Tony.
Yeah, I think that's a more pressing need is depth of safety. I agree.
Gyro asks, will we see the return of the Wildcat next year, Tony?
Not unless Ben gets hurt again. No, I think they're gonna stick with Ben. I mean, they really didn't do a whole heck of a lot with it last year, other than the Bengals game, as far as it being effective. So no, I don't see that returning.
So that's a good question there. Here's one that might go back to our last question a couple questions ago to Switzer. Who's our return guy?
Oh,
Is it
it's
Switzer?
Deontay
He's
Johnson.
back.
No, you have. I think you have to. If Antonio Brown could return punts well into his fifth, sixth, seventh year, and he was the best in the NFL as wide receiver when he was still returning punts. I think Deontay Johnson's your guy until he proves to be so valuable as a receiver that they can't put him on the field anymore, or they can't put him back there anymore. I think he's just too good as a return guy to not have him as the lead guy.
I kind of agree on that, but here's the thing. They kind of like to go to Switzer in that position because he's not going to fumble it, but he's not going to move. That's the problem. I mean, double edge. Chicago Pimp, I believe the Steelers wide receivers are very underrated, all because of youth, plus wide receiver is a position requiring speed and stamina, which young guys have. What do y'all think? I think our wide receiver core top 10. I think this is a good wide receiving core. I really like what they're bringing in with the top 4 guys. And the top 4 guys, of course, going to be JuJu, who I think JuJu's going to have a monster year. And I think we need an entire podcast. Maybe we'll do that next week on JuJu right now, because I think his demise has been greatly exaggerated. A lot of people are down on him and ready to say goodbye to him when he's working out like a madman. And I think he's got a lot of heart, soul. He's got the youth. He's got the talent. We'll talk about that more next week. I love Deontay Johnson, what he's going to bring in with his second year and his first year with Ben. I'd like to see them get some time together. Tony, the other 2 guys, James Washington, he's a second rounder who led the team in yardage last year. And now Chase Claypool. And don't forget, you've still got Deion Kane, Switzer, Saeed Blocknell trying to get jobs in there, and a couple more.
Right. Yeah, I think it's good, trending to great because of like you said, JuJu. I think Ben coming back and Ben being healthy, if he is healthy, that's going to make all the difference for him. And then, Deontay Johnson, the rookie year that he had, and like I keep saying, I can't believe there isn't more hype or more love for James Washington based on his second year. I think he did really, really well last year, but considering the struggles of the offense. And of course, you have Chase Claypool, who as a number 4 receiver coming out of college right now. I mean, he looks like he could be a really good weapon for them right away.
So this question here, Dallas says, if JuJu makes the Pro Bowl, do we keep him and pay him? You definitely try.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to make something. You have to try to make an effort, I guess.
Just a fan, do you think Highsmith will have an impact on defense? I'm probably going to say I hope not next year. I hope he eventually does. I hope not in 2020. I hope he does in 2021. Tony, because if he's playing next year, that means something happened with Bud or Watt or something, or they're not playing well.
Yeah, unless they, because I mean, those 2, I think they both played 90-some% of the snaps last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. I think Bud played 95% of the snaps. I might be wrong on that, but unless they can find a way, because of some obvious talent that he shows right away, and I'm talking about Highsmith, unless they can find a way to put him in situationally and create some mismatches for him. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to see him all that much next year unless it's as a special teams demon.
Okay, we're going to rapid fire here for the next 2 minutes, and then we're going to have to get on out of here. So let's go with this. So Nathaniel, do you see Minka being a Steeler for the rest of his career, Tony?
I hope so. I mean, he's going to be a huge price tag, though. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I really think so. I really think that's the guy they would really want to keep as far as that goes. So I'm not really seeing too many more questions here. So we'll go ahead and cut off the questions and say thank you. I'm going to throw in a comment here. Claypool will win Rookie of the Year. And then we're going to go ahead and put in Dave Schofield. Highsmith can get 200 to 300 snaps as a reserve. Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to see him out there.
Yeah.
And we want to see him get some action, but you don't want to see him making his impact as a starter.
Yeah, you don't want to see 60 snaps a game.
You don't want to see him have to have it. And
Right.
that's what we're trying to say. So we need to go ahead and cut things off here and say thank you very much to everybody helping us out in the live chat. Thank you for everybody that threw in on the super chat as well. Tony, once again, it is Memorial Day, and this is where we remember those that made the biggest sacrifice because to our country, dying while in the military, dying in battle. So thank you so much to anybody who gave that highest sacrifice. We're not here, and we don't celebrate the freedom that we have without you. So thank you very much. As far as that, everybody else, have a happy Memorial Day. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to try out my barbecue and get that going, Tony. So I hope you have a great rest of the day as well, my friend.
You too, Bryan. Enjoy the rest of your holiday, and same with everybody in the live chat and in Steeler Nation. Have a great Memorial Day.
And so you will see Tony next coming up on Saturday with Brunch with Tony. It'll be sometime in the early morning, afternoon, and then you will see me once again. I believe you'll probably see me once again Thursday on the Steeler Preview. And remember, check out the Steeler Preview because it is going to be Jeff Hartman's last show on the Behind the Steel Curtain family of podcasts. Remember all of the family of podcasts for all your Steeler needs. And remember, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. New articles every single day. The things that Dave Schofield will be starting to do as the editor, and a lot of the staff that have been promoted and coming in and doing the jobs that you've expected from the past. You're not going to miss a beat. So thank you so much for all of you. Remember, we can't do the show without you in the live chat. To quote the great Roddy Piper, just you think you've got all the answers, Tony.
We keep changing the questions.
We'll see y'all later.
Have a great week.
Take care.